Thanks for joining us here today. If this is your first time or you're returning to us, let me encourage you to go to jesusistherock.org. While you're there, give us an update on how God is working in your life. Now, if He's working life change through our ministries, let me encourage you to give to us financially on the website by clicking the giving button at the top right-hand corner of the screen. Thank you so very much for tuning in today, and welcome to Church on the Rock.
Mark's Gospel, chapter 7. Jesus is doing some teaching here. Verse 1, he says, "One day, some Pharisees and teachers of religious law arrived from Jerusalem to see Jesus. They noticed that some of his disciples failed to follow the Jewish ritual of hand washing before eating. The Jews, especially the Pharisees, do not eat until they have poured water over their cupped hands as required by their ancient traditions." Everybody say traditions. Not a bad thing. It's good to wash your hands before you eat. But they're not just washing their hands because they're dirty. They're washing their hands because it's a ceremonial thing. It's something that they're taught to do. It's something that they're required to do. Not for hygiene purposes necessarily, but it's just something they do because it's ancient traditions. Similarly, I hate that word. Just like that, they don't eat anything from the market until they immerse their hands in water. This is but one of many traditions they've clung to, such as their ceremonial washing of cups, pitchers, and kettles. None of that's bad. They're not exactly doing it for the right reason. They've sort of it's become a ceremony now. And Jesus replied, "You hypocrites, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you." Here's what Isaiah wrote. "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship is a farce, for they teach man-made ideas as commandments of God." Here's the problem. It's not that the tradition's wrong. It's not that anything they're doing is wrong. The problem is they're teaching the traditions of man and they're calling them the commandments of God. They're saying, this is what you got to do, thus saith the Lord. The Lord didn't say that. It's not that it's wrong to do it. It's just that it's not a commandment of God. In verse 8, he says, "You ignore God's law and you substitute your own tradition." Then he said, "You skillfully sidestep God's law in order to hold on to your own tradition." And now Jesus goes on to give them an example. In verse 10, he says, "For instance, Moses gave you this law from God. Honor your father and mother." God gave you that law. Honor your father and your mother. "And anyone who speaks disrespectfully of father or mother must be put to death." Hear that, kids? But you say it's all right for people to say to their parents, "Sorry, I can't help you. I vowed to give to God what I would have given to you." In this way, you let them disregard their needy parents, and so you cancel the word of God in order to hand down your own tradition. And this is only one example among many others. So tonight we're going to be kind of looking at the difference in the traditions of man and the commandments of God. And there's a big difference. And back in verse 2, I want to read out of the King James Version. It says, "When they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defiled, that is to say, with unwashed hands, they found fault." They found fault. And so I've titled the message tonight, "Are you a fault finder?" Are you a fault finder? Some people find fault with everything they see, everything they hear, everybody they run into. They find fault with it. Something's wrong with them. Everywhere they go, something's wrong with it. Every day they walk outside, it's too hot, or it's too cold, or it's too dry, or it's too wet. It's too noisy, it's too quiet. This church is too big, this church is too small. This church is not friendly, this church is too friendly. I've had people leave because they said church was too friendly. People are hugging you all the time and stuff like that. Some folks, you wonder sometimes, it's like how frustrating it must be for God. With just take weather, for example. It's like he says, okay, I'm going to give you 4 seasons. I'm going to make it warm in the summer, and then I'm going to keep it a little milder in the fall. I'll cool it down in the winter for those of you that like that. I'll warm it back up in the spring. But it's like he can't make you happy, though. He's done everything. I'll bring out the sun. I'll bring out the rain. Some people find fault with everything. Now, I got Erica to write this up here for me because my handwriting, as well as my spelling, I probably wouldn't even spell it right. It's not the best. If there's anything worse than my spelling and my handwriting, it's my math. You don't believe it? Ask my mom. I think I retired 2 or 3 math teachers early, probably, because I was never good at math. So we're going to keep it real simple tonight. But I just want to kind of see how things add up. If you do work some equations, I'm going to keep them real simple, because I'm just going to do like what? Just a couple. 1 plus 1 equals 2, and 2 plus 2 equals 3, and 3 plus 3. What? Oh, I told you. But you know what else I noticed? I did 3 equations. Nobody told me how good I did on the other 2. I got 2 out of 3 right. Nobody said, Pastor, you aced those 2. Oh, I only missed 1. And which one did you pick to talk about? Do we have any fault finders in here? I'll sit with my mouth closed as long as everything's good and you're successful and you do this. You make 1 mistake, buddy, I'm going to let you know about it. Right? Now, I'm just having fun tonight, but is that right? Is it a lot easier for us to perk up and talk about when we find fault with something and totally dismiss everything? Just before it, I did good. And since it, I did good. But I made 1 mistake, and that's what we focus on. That's what we talk about. A person can spend their whole life doing good, feeding the hungry, taking care of the poor, worshiping God, serving God, doing great things, and make 1 mistake. And their whole legacy, people remember them what? Not for all the good they did, but for the mistake they made. The 1 problem they had, the 1 struggle they had, whatever it was, that's what people want to talk about and think about and gossip about and remember them about. He says, when they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defiled, that is to say with unwashed hands, they found fault. Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes there is fault. Let's face it, I was wrong. 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 3 in Greek, Hebrew, or English. I was wrong, so I'm not denying that. I'm only pointing out that along with my mistake, I got a couple of things right. How many times are we quick to yell at the kids because they didn't pick up their things or they didn't do their homework or they forgot to do their chores or they did something and make no mistake, listen, it's their fault. They're wrong. There's no denying that. But when's the last time we sat down with our kids and said, you've done really good at picking up your room lately. I just want you to know I've noticed that. I'm proud of you. You've been playing with your little brother, your little sister really good. I appreciate that. I know they get on your nerves, but you've been really good at playing with them. And you've been doing your homework without me even telling you to. And I just want you to know I'm really proud of that. You know, when we get interested, when we get a referral from the teacher saying they hadn't been doing their homework, now everybody wants to get involved. We want to have conferences and we want to do this, we want to do that, because now we found a problem. When's the last time we just praised our kids for doing right? And I know what you're thinking. You may be saying, well, my kids don't do any of it right. But I promise you, you may have to look, but if you'll take time to look, you'll find something your kids are doing right. And I'll tell you something else, your praise will go a lot further than your criticism in making them want to do right. You start praising a kid for doing right and watch them. Not just kids either, grown folks too. You start praising them for what they're doing right, they'll break their back for you. But I mean, it's the same way with our spouse, our boyfriend, girlfriend, co-workers, our boss, our church. Anybody can find fault. Anybody can pick out. You don't have to be all spiritual to find fault. You don't have to be a prophet from God. You don't have to be anointed. You don't have to be, all you got to be is nosy and mean. You can find mistakes. Doesn't take a great deal of intellect or anything else. So why would we though? Why would we constantly point out the mistakes of others? I tell you one big reason, because it keeps the light off of our faults. Or at least we think it does. It really don't, but we think it does. That's why we do it. That's why the Pharisees did it. That's why we do it. Pharisees have always needed sinners. Pharisees always needed tax collectors and harlots and all of these things that the Bible talks about that they were always complaining about. They needed the disciples who didn't wash their hands in a ceremonial washing. They need that so they can look at that, and then by comparison, they don't look so bad. In fact, they look pretty good. They look pretty good. And the sad thing is, that's why the church today needs drug addicts and alcoholics and homosexuals and everything, and adulterers and all that we can point our finger, because we can always look at how bad they are and say, by comparison, I'm not so bad. I'm doing pretty well. I look pretty good. At least to people I do. Just one problem with that. At the end of the day, it don't matter what people think. The only one that really matters is God, and he's not looking at what everybody else looks at, is he? He said, man looks on the outward appearance. God looks on the heart. In verse 9, he said, you skillfully sidestep God's law in order to hold on to your own tradition. You skillfully, now that's a strong statement. You skillfully sidestep God's law. Oh, we're gonna go to church Sunday morning and Sunday night and Wednesday night and Sunday school and Bible study and sing in the choir, because that's all the traditions of man, right? That's what we're supposed to do. That's what good Christians do. And listen, I'm not being critical of that. All of that's good stuff. All of that's wonderful things. Just don't confuse it with the commandments of God. Don't call it a commandment of God. Well, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I'm supposed to do. Because the truth is, you can go to church, tradition of man, and sit there with lust in your heart, commandment of God. Anyone who looks upon a woman and lusts after her has committed adultery in his heart already. And you can sit on the front row, clap your hands and sing and dance and shout, traditions of man. Nothing wrong with it. It's all good stuff. But you sit there with bitterness in your heart. Commandment of God. Forgive one another. Love one another. Love your enemies. Do good to them that despitefully use you. Commandments of God. So we get the things mixed up. We sit here with lusting in our hearts and bitterness in our heart, and everybody thinks we're still wonderful. See, you can treat your wife like dirt, break the commandments of God. Husbands, love your wives like Christ loves the church, right? And still sing in the choir, keeping the traditions of man. Nobody will know except the ones that really matter, like your family, and most importantly, God. Jesus said, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, didn't I cast out devils? Didn't I prophesy? Didn't I do many wonderful works? Everybody say, traditions of man. Yeah, you did. I'll admit it, you did. You did all that. Now depart from me. because I never knew you. You did a lot of great stuff in the eye. People clapped, people called your name. They put your name on plaques. You did everything. You did all that good. And people, I just hope you enjoyed the glory there because I never knew you. See, we can get out, we can picket and we can protest. We can talk about the casinos over there because they're robbing people of their money. Robbing people. Everybody say traditions of man. We'll turn around and rob God with our tithes and offerings. Everybody say, commandments of God. Bring the tithe into the storehouse. I didn't make it up. God said it. One's a tradition of man. We get up in the air because they're robbing people, and we turn around and God said, you robbed me because you won't bring the tithe into the storehouse. One's a tradition of man. The other's a commandment of God. We'll rob the IRS, cheat on our income tax. Commandments of God. He said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Commandments of God. We'll be less than honest in a business deal. Commandment of God. He said, you should not steal. You should not bear false witness. If you're lying about this thing, you're doing this, you're breaking the commandments of God. Sins of the heart. Jesus lists a few of these for us. On down further in the chapter. Let's look at verse number 20. And he added, it's what comes from the inside that defiles you. He's talking about this hand washing deal they got going. He says, it's what comes from the inside that defiles you. Far from within, out of a person's heart, comes evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, wickedness, deceit, lustful desires, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these vile things come from within, and they are what defiles you. It's not your hands. It's not your dirty hands that bothers me. He said it's your dirty heart. It's your dirty heart. You're worrying about somebody's hands on the outside, traditions of men. He said, I'm worrying about a dirty heart. See, if you're sitting around fantasizing about what it would be like to be married to your best friend's wife and all this, you haven't done it. You haven't broke any traditions of man, but you broke 4 or 5 of these down here. Evil thoughts, adultery, because you've been looking on them, lusting, theft, you're wanting to steal somebody else's spouse, coveting, you're coveting something that doesn't belong to you, wickedness, deceit, foolishness, an evil eye. You haven't done anything outwardly, but you haven't broken one tradition of man, but you've broken many of the laws of God. And you sit there and smile and look good to everybody. Nobody knows it, but you and God. You and God. And I'm not saying this to condemn anybody. This is not condemnation. It's just revelation. I'm just trying to point out that what we call little things and we justify them in our lives as well, that's not really bad. And he says, yeah, it's as bad, if not worse, than what we traditionally call major sins. We look at things that aren't even commandments of God. They're just traditions of men, and we call it, and Jesus addressed this in another way. He said, why do you keep trying to get the speck out of your brother's eye and you've got logs in your own eye? You're trying to get a piece of sawdust out of your brother's eye and you got a 2x4 sticking out of your eye. You're worrying about their traditions and my disciples not washing their hands before they eat. And you've got so much bitter and pride and anger in your hearts. Don't you see that? It's what's inside that defiles you, not what's outside. We've got things mixed up. We got things backwards. So the point is this, correction is not wrong. All you who corrected me, it's not wrong. The Bible tells us that his word is given to us for correction, for reproof, for conviction. It says that his word's quick and powerful and sharper than a two-edged sword. It should bring conviction. It should bring correction. But 2 things I want you to know about it real quick. Number 1, let's be sure that when we correct by the word of God, not by the traditions of men. Now, if you miss everything else, don't miss that. When we correct, let's be sure we correct by the word of God and not by the traditions of men. Not because that's the way we've always done it around here. Not because that's the latest thing to jump on to criticize, the latest political thing to jump on. Not because everybody else, not because Washington says it's wrong, or not because the church down the street says it's wrong. Well, if we're going to correct, let's correct by the Word of God, the whole Word of God. Number two, and just as important, let's be as quick with our praise as we are our criticism. Instead of looking for what's wrong with people, begin to focus on what's right about them. That's what Jesus did. Remember, Jesus went to the woman at the well, and he tells her, he says, go call your husband. Well, she's going to sidestep that. She says, I'm not married. You remember what Jesus did? He said, thou hast well said. He gave her a compliment. That's a good answer, woman. Even though you've been married 5 times, now you got to live in, kind of a rental. But that's a good answer. Thou hast well said. But you've been married 5 times. Let's get honest. And now you got to live in. Somebody said one time, Pastor, you could find something good to say about the devil. I said, well, you got to admire his persistence. Right? He's persistent. Think about somebody who you easily find fault with. And it's easy because they do so many things wrong. Anybody know anybody like that? I do. Constantly doing stuff wrong. Constantly getting up on your nerves, and it's easy to find fault with them. And maybe every time you leave church, or every time you leave work, or every time you leave the family gathering where and you spend the next 2 or 3 days talking about and thinking about everything this person did and what they said and how they acted. And that's easy for us to do. It's as easy as recognizing 2 + 2 doesn't equal 3. It's easy for us to do that because, number one, maybe we're just not crazy about them to begin with. And number two, as long as I can shine the light on their faults, I can stay away from my faults. So it's easy for us just to pick out an easy target and find them and find fault with everything they do. Whether it's our spouse or our friend or our enemy or our family or whatever the case may be. Let me just kind of close out with this. I want you to get this. If for no other reason, if it weren't a God thing and the commandments of God, let me just give you a little bit of social help here. People get tired of listening to you being critical all the time. When you're criticizing somebody all the time, you know what that person you're criticizing them to are thinking? They're thinking, I wonder what they say about me when I'm not around. That's what I think. When I hear somebody that's always being critical of everybody and everything, I start wondering, I wonder what they say about me when I'm not there. People get tired of hearing it. But tonight, I want our prayer to be, Lord, show me something good about that person. Let me begin to focus on that which is good and positive. And if enough people begin to praise the good in that person, maybe they'll begin to see the good and let the good outshine the bad. I believe that we'll see change in them because if you start focusing on their good, maybe they will too. You start praising them for what they're doing right, and they'll begin. Praise will make you do praise will make you do stuff. You break your back if somebody's praising you. I've told you this little illustration before. I always kind of hate to do it because I bust all the ladies out. The lady's like, don't be telling them that. I've had them snookered for years. But men, when your wife tells you that you're the best cook in town, nobody can barbecue like my man can. I mean, that man can make a hamburger taste like a filet. They're lying. You're not that good. But you're out there every Saturday with your little chef's hat on. You just, a little praise will go a long way. Yeah, you just, and they're just praising you. Oh, honey, that smells so good. I wish I could cook like that. No, get out there. I got this. You just go sit down. You know it's true. I'm sorry, ladies. Somebody had to tell them, though. They walk around with these little aprons, world's greatest chef and all this stuff. They believe in it. All right, let's wrap this up. Verse 14. Then Jesus called to the crowd to come and hear. All of you listen, he said, and try to understand. It's not what goes into your body that defiles you. You're defiled by what comes out of your heart. For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So what's in your heart? Well, what are you saying? What are you talking about? How's your conversation been? Let's say, this week. How's your conversation been? How's your words been? Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. It just overflows. It just overflows. He said, we carry in our words the power of life and death. Hear how powerful that is? You got the power to speak life into somebody, and you got the power to kill things in people. You can kill your children's spirit. You can kill your spouse's passion and you break their hearts. How many of you can remember sometimes, some of you maybe way back when you were a child, somebody said something that hurt your feelings, just tore you up. You remember that? I do. I can remember as a kid somebody saying something, and I can still remember it to this day. That's powerful. I can't remember what folks said to me yesterday, but I can remember 40 years ago. Isn't that weird? That's power. We have the power both to heal and to destroy. Don't be a fault finder. Be a praiser. Make up your mind. And don't leave here and just say, well, that's pretty good. Don't just be a hearer of the word. Well, I heard a sermon. I heard what he said. James said, don't just be hearers of the word. Be a doer of the word. And if you look into that mirror tonight of God's word and you see, I got a little smudge of that here. I got a little touch of that criticism over here. I'm seeing a little bit of that fault finding down here. Wash it off. Wash it off.
Again, we are incredibly glad that you joined us here today at Church on the Rock. Let me encourage you to go to the website. There you can find any of our archived podcasts. You can send us an email about how God's working in your life or a prayer request, or you can give to our ministries financially by clicking the giving button at the top right-hand corner of the screen. Have a blessed day.